I'm very happy to be here because I did my PhD at Lynx when it was in Place d'Italie many years ago, and it kind of where this research started. So when I was at Lynx, maybe I'm just going to tell you how I arrived here from Lynx. I was working with Renata Teixeira. She was my PhD advisor, and we were working on internet network broadband measurements, classical networking studies. But during this time, it was 15 years ago or something. And we could see all this social media appearing there. And I increasingly become interested in understanding what are the risks with social media. And at some point during my PhD, I went to Renata and I asked her, look, I really want to work on understanding privacy risks with social media. Can I still do this with you? And she kindly agreed to work on this direction together and switch PhD topic. Now, the interesting thing at that time is that there was no community. Social media was a bit studied by graph theory people, but was not studied from like a measurement perspective, or there were very few researchers. So there was no kind of methodologies that everyone agreed on what are the interesting problems and what are the methodologies to tackle them. And what I realized after so many years is that what I learned during the first years of a PhD of doing these measurements from the outside, where we were trying to figure out what's going wrong with the network. This was my approach that I brought to this new domain. So just to make for you to understand from where I'm coming. So I'm doing measurements from the outside to understand the risks with social media. Okay, so there are a bunch of risks that we can work on. And now this field has become very broad. You have many researchers across many disciplines that are looking into this, and it's a very big, yes, it's a very big field. So first, I mean, the most worrying for everyone, it's risks for our democracies. And here we can distinguish two main threats. One is foreign interference. So many of you probably heard about Cambridge Analytica. So Cambridge Analytica was a political consultancy company. And what they are known for is that they used social media to target people with messages, with ads that are congruent with their personality. So you have, and yes, this was Cambridge Analytica. This was not foreign interference, but aside for this, there was this Internet Research Agency that has been doing similar things. That was a Russian company, and also in the same election in 2016, they were trying to send ads to the U.S. Citizens in order to make people angry against each other. So this system, online platforms that we've built, they can be exploited by either foreign interference actor or local actors, but they can be exploited in order to change the opinion of users. And this is like a big issue. Now, the second issue that comes with online platforms are from their own algorithms. So you don't have an external attacker that it's exploiting the system for its benefit. You have the platform itself that it's implementing these recommender systems and all these algorithms that are promoting content to the users. And it has been shown by previous work that these algorithms are biased in different ways. And one worrying way in which they are biased is that in Brazil, there was this study that was claiming that YouTube led to the radicalization of Brazil because it was leading people to more and more extremist content. Okay, just two different attack models. Then we have all these issues for the mental health of people, especially teenagers. And we even have a ruling from a UK court that was blaming they said in the case that social media had to do significantly in the suicide of a teenage girl. So this is another type of risk. Then we have the privacy risks, which is what I initially started to work on. And here we have like these two types, identity disclosure and attribute disclosure. So identity disclosure is when someone is able to learn your identity in different online platforms, across online platforms, like a sort of de-anonymize you even when you want to remain anonymous. And attribute disclosure risk, it's something that we can learn about someone by looking at their activity and what they are doing that they didn't want it to reveal. And I think in this case, one of the classical example about attribute disclosure that you can infer from social media is that there was this girl, this teenager that she got pregnant and she didn't told anyone, but all of a sudden she started to see many ads about baby stuff, and this is how their family learned that she was actually pregnant. So like a real offline dangers. And finally, we have also financial and economic risks. So these are caused by, again, two things. One is fake reviews. So we know that it's quite easy to create an account either on Amazon or on Twitter or whatever. And many of these e-commerce sites are asking people to rate a certain product. Why you might not know is that it's very easy to just go on the black market and buy reviews for your product, or for good reviews for your product, or bad reviews for other products. So most of the rating, not most, I don't know how many, but it's likely that the ratings that we are seeing, they are not truthful, because we don't know to which extent they have been tampered by these attackers. The second one comes again from algorithms, that in this case, it's not that they have an influence on our opinions, but they have an influence on the producers. Because if the Amazon product algorithms are favoring some businesses over the other, they are creating all this unfairness in the market. And there are studies that are showing that Amazon was favoring certain types of product designers on their marketplace. Okay, so this is about the risks. Now, I was telling you that I'm coming from a network measurement perspective. So here are the studies that I'm usually doing in this space to understand the risks. So first is auditing studies, which is very typical. We want to understand, is this algorithm biased in any way? So what you are doing is you are probing from the outside. You are trying to come up with a smart measurement methodology to understand and verify whether it is biased in any way. So you are probing it from the outside. The second type of study is behavioral analysis studies. So these platforms are used by users, are used by advertisers, are used by people, which kind of changes the way that they are working. So another type of study you can do related to online platforms is just to try to collect this real world data from as many users as possible to understand how they are using these platforms. The third type of study that you can do is attack studies. This is typically in the security and privacy community. You have a system and you are looking for what is an exploit that I can use to either infer something about someone. And as an example of an attack study, what we did a few years back is that we showed that by using the statistics that were provided by online platforms for advertisers, we were able to de-anonymize people that visited our website. And that anyone in the world who owns a website where you are supposed to be anonymous, if they implement this Facebook pixel, this Facebook technology on their website, they were able to learn the emails and the phone numbers of everyone that was connected to Facebook and was visiting their website. And this has all sorts of implications, maybe even worse from in authoritarian countries, that they can use this to see who's visiting, who wants to do a strike or something. Anyway, the vulnerability is no longer there. We talked with Facebook before we published the paper, but this is just to understand a bit the kind of studies to do. And then you have studies in terms of solution, because we don't only want to point to the risk, but we also want to propose something useful. Typical computer science vision, it's, oh, let's have an algorithm that is detecting something. But what I realized is that in this space, there was such a willingness to regulate, that all of a sudden there are a bunch of studies that you can do to help regulators in having better laws. And I'm going to give you a few examples now. So now let's look at one risk, which is risks that are linked to political micro-targeting. So here I'm talking about advertising technologies. And the reason why I think this system is dangerous is that while it was designed to promote shoes to someone that it's looking to buy new shoes or interested in sports, it can also be used to send information. And what they are known for in the advertising system is that they are collecting data on platforms like Facebook, TikTok, Google, but they're also collecting a lot of behavioral data outside on websites such as Nike, Le Monde, or whoever implemented this tracking cookie. Facebook and Google and TikTok are able to know this information, that this user has visited this website. So based on all this information that they are collecting on users, they are using AI to infer interest. And at the particular point in 2018, I think we collected 250,000 different attributes that advertisers were able to choose to target their ads. So this was not Stan, not interested in sports, but it was Alcoholics Anonymous and all sorts of other crazy attributes there. So what I want you to understand is that this technology, it's allowing an advertiser that wants to influence an election or a public policy to have one version of this ad that is specifically designed for and targeted at a particular type of people, and another version of this ad that is particularly designed for and targeted at another version, at another characteristic of people. And beforehand, it was quite time consuming to design an ad that talks to a particular category of people. But now with this new generative AI era, it's becoming easier to adapt the content of the ad, being the image, being the text, to women, men, or all sorts of racial and ethnic or whatever interests you would like to target. And this is what it means, that an advertiser, that can be everyone, because in like 3 clicks you can send an ad. You just need to provide your credit card and there is no other verification. Everyone, it's able to use users' personal data to manipulate them, which is of course very problematic for our democracies, because it's a technology that it can be easily misused. So after Cambridge Analytica, as I was saying, the European Commission, and as well as other countries, they wanted to do something, and even platforms, they wanted to do something to make this system safer for us. So the question is, how do you make this system safer? So the first thing that you go after, usually it's transparency. We want to know what political ads have been sent at a particular time on the platform. And what online platforms have done back in 2000, I think, 17, after the 2016 election, is that they put these central repositories for political ads, where journalists could go and actually investigate what were the ads saying about in this context, so that it can be audited. Now, the problem is that we don't know how many ads, political ads, were missing from this ad library, because this is something that has been built by Facebook, and we haven't had any external audit. And the difficulty is because we don't have access to what users are seeing on their on Facebook. So it's hard to understand whether what they are providing to the public is the complete picture, or they are just it's a subsample of the political ads. So for this, what we set up to do is that we build this measurement approach based on donation of personal data to science, which was something that I did in the PhD before switching in order to understand the network measurements, in order to understand the performance of networks. So we designed a tool, it's a browser extension that it's able to collect the content that users are seeing online. Now it's becoming an approach that it's quite well adopted. But at that time, there was no such approach. And this software, we did two campaigns, one in 2018 in Brazil, where we got about 2,000 users, and another one in the US, where we got around 1,000 users that gave us a sample of all the ads they were seeing during the data collection period. So with this data collection, we were able to build a political ad detector. This is simple AI. It was before anything fancy happened. I think we had convolutional neural network at that time that was the most performant. And what we observe is that half of the political ads that we observe were absent from this ad library. Now, the thing is that we could say that, oh, it's because our algorithm, it's different than the algorithm that Facebook has. So here we try to look into more detail. And what is happening is that Facebook at that time, they were not saying anything about, they were asking advertisers to label their ads as being political or not, and they were not saying anything about enforcement. And I think they were not having a lot of enforcement in Brazil during that time. And then the second thing that we did is that we verify with the students every single ad that we detected as political, just to make sure that we don't have many false positives and you're not making like crazy claims. So we had 3 students labeling, I don't know how many ads, just that I'm sure that we don't have false positive problems are big issues. So this was quite problematic at that time, because this was like the only repository that was able to help somehow with elections, and this was missing a lot of political ads. So what happened is that during that time, also the European Commission was working on the Digital Services Act. I'm not sure whether you heard about the Digital Services Act a bit or not. This is this new regulation for online platforms. So they were working on it. It was not set up on what to put in there. So together with civil societies that I met at a random conference made of lawyers, where I went there just to understand a bit what are the legislation around election. And somehow I entered in contact with many NGOs. So we wrote a statement. We got many NGOs to sign on it and saying that we need more transparency. We need ad libraries that contain information about all the ads on the platform, and we need more information about these ads, because if not, you won't be able to detect any malicious campaign. And apparently they listened, the message arrived to them, and what was nice was that the paper was providing some actual evidence. And in this community, there was not a lot of actual evidence to back up any recommendations. So somehow, based on these two things, the things that we ask, many, no, not all, they appear now in the final DSA regulation in Article 39.
Is this linked to what happens currently with the Trump administration retaliating against Europe because of one of these European policy for digital
Yeah, this is one of the policy that Trump
wants to get rid of? Yeah.
Yes.
But it's one of the justifications of the current trade war and the tariffs and all this.
Yes, yes.
One of these European laws, right?
Yes, this is one of the, this is, yeah, I think he doesn't like this one. There is also the Digital Markets Act, that it's more on e-commerce sites. There's also the AI Act, that is more on regulating AI. And they are working on another law, which is the Digital Fairness Act, that it's supposed to take care of everything that we forgot before. But yeah, DSA, it's the big one that he's fighting. Now we'll see. He won't be there for.
And so on the same line, I mean, there is nothing. There was nothing even in the. I mean, under preparation in the US for this type of trying to regulate a little bit the.
Yeah. So they were. We were discussing with people at the White House. I was involved in some other meetings afterwards, after the DSA, and there was during Biden this willingness to have similar regulations in the US and trying to exchange with the European Commission. But there was the executive order that Biden has done, which is similar in spirit to the AI Act. But
it's over.
For now, or I don't know, we'll see. Okay, so this is about this study that was
Oana?
Yes.
I have a question. I don't know if it is relevant, but how those people were sending you this kind of personal data? I mean, the advertisements they were receiving. The reason I'm asking is because if the platform detect that these people are sharing this information, the system may decide to fake the study, right? To send them political ads that are different from what the algorithm, the basic algorithm is supposed to send.
Yes, absolutely. This is possible, and the thing, there are two arguments that this didn't happen. One is that we were very small and at the beginning where they didn't care too much. And the second thing, many of the features that we are using cannot be, we are collecting passively from the browser. So the information is received by the browser and we are collecting passively this information. So this passively collected information, there is no way for them to detect that we are doing. Now there are some additions that we can put on the plugin, on the browser extension to also actively go. We could, for example, instruct the tool that we built to go on Google, always search Biden and see what are the top results to see whether there is any bias in the results Google are giving. But this is an active measurement because we are inputting, our extension is inputting content on a platform, and this it's more easier to detect. But if you only passively collect what people are seeing, they cannot detect this.
Okay, thanks.
Then what happened? So this was our tool that we called Ad Analyst. What happened a few years afterwards? It was this New York group wanted to build or rebuild or redeploy this in the US, and we made this version of Ad Observer. And it was they have been pursued in they managed to get more users to the 10,000 sort of 10,000 users instead of our 2,000 or 1,000, and then Facebook send them a cease and desist, and there was this cease and desist. They poursuivi en justice, either stop or we are going to pursue you, and then New York University with all the lawyers that we have and saying, no, let's blow this out of proportion, and it kind of blew out of proportion, and in the end, I don't have I think it didn't went. There was no willingness of any party to pursue this, but there was this problem of Facebook pursuing researchers because of this type of data collection, because it's against the terms of service. So this is also one of the reasons that I'm trying to have this safe harbor for researchers. Whenever I'm trying to, I'm talking with people at the European Commission, trying to tell them, look, we need this safe harbor, and we need researchers to have the right to collect data in order to audit systemic risks with online platforms. And there is this notion of safe harbor in a delegated act of the Digital Services Act that was recently signed. Yes, Daniel. Hopefully this answers your question.
Perfectly.
Okay, so what other ideas are there to make platforms safer? The other one, it's restrictions. And one idea proposed by the European Parliament was to ban all the political ads from any platform. So you're no longer have the ability to pay for political ads. But the question here, can we reliably detect political ads? So here we did a simple experiment where we had users and they had to label ads as whether they are political or non-political. And then we tried to see whether there was agreement among the users or whether a particular ad is political or non-political. And we got users, we only selected here ads that had 3 votes from users and 1 label from the advertiser, and one of them was saying that is political. And here we see that half of the ads, everyone was agreeing that they are political, but the other half, you had disagreement. Either more users thought that it's political, and some thought that it's non-political, either the other way around. But the fact of non-agreeing of whether a particular content is political or non-political, it seemed to be quite frequent. So we wanted to understand, why is this happening? What are the ads what are the ads on which people agree, and what are the ads on which people don't agree? And before going to that, I just forgot. So if we have a legislation that is banning political ads, but there is no agreement in what is political and what is non-political, and then you have AI systems that are detecting things that users don't agree, it's really hard to apply legislation in a concrete form because it's not operationalizable. Okay, so when we went in the analysis of the content of these ads, we realized that you have a particular class of political ads, which are political ads about social issues that are creating problems. So you have the ads that are talking about politicians or are from politicians. This is not a lot of disagreement. People agree that they are political, but then you have ads about retirement in France or whatever other public policy that you can have. In the US, it's immigration and abortion. And it's this kind of ads that don't mention anything related to election, anything related to a politician, that are creating a lot of confusion. And if we look deeper, these are called social issue ads because they are about the social issues in a particular country. Now, when you look deeper at these ads, what you could realize is that there are 2 types. There are some of the types some types are very political, highly political, and they are, for example, encouraging actions on policy. They are about advocacy. So you want to treat them as political and have transparency on them or ban them or whatever, restrict them. But there are many other ads that are just humanitarian. And at text level, they are talking about the same things. And it's really hard to have a distinction between something that it's advocacy and yes, something that is advocacy and something that it's humanitarian. And with the current form, it's quite hard to apply legislation on restricting political ads, which in the end was not the case. We, in some consultation, we talked about this, our study, that you can actually not apply the legislation even if you make it. And the other problem is that if we say we don't care, we are going to try to ban as many ads that are politically related as possible, we need to take the decision that we are going to sacrifice all NGOs that are trying to use advertising to get humanitarian aid to some countries, because all their ads will be labeled as political and they won't be able to use this mean of communication. So the European Commission was also working on another set of laws, which is the European Democracy Action Plan, which are laws that would be just related to elections and online. And here we try to discuss two things. One is the definition of what would be the best definition of a political ad to kind of don't have less issues. And another one that we had, the idea from another paper, is what is the data that is necessary for researchers to detect malicious political ad campaign. So now imagine that you have ad libraries that are complete. And I think in the US, you have 100,000 of political ads in a few days or a few months. But you have a huge amount of political ads. In France, you have less. So you need a way to actually detect what are the most malicious ones. And what we realize is the click-through rate, which is a typical measure in advertising, meaning how many people, out of the people that saw this ad, how many actually clicked on the ad. It's a simple metric. But what we observed when we studied the ads that were sent in this Russian research agency, before the 2016 election, they were published, and we observed that they were having like 10 times the click-through rate of normal ads, meaning that there were more people than normal clicking on them. There is nothing super sciencey, but what it means is that we can use this as a signal to kind of rank the ads in potentially, okay, these political ads are getting really higher engagement than everything else, so you might want to focus on them first. And it somehow entered the legislation as well. Yes, I'm saying somehow because usually you have the main articles of legislation where there are these strict rules, this is the law, and then you have the recitals that are kind of explaining how the article can be interpreted. And the click-through rate initially was in the main article, and somehow, because there are many revisions happening after a first draft of the law, it only appeared in a recital. So it's a bit less good, but hopefully we will have this data in ad libraries. Continuing on the types of kind of restrictions, another idea was to restrict micro-targeting, but in general, not only for political ads. But let's say we are going to forbid tracking or forbid micro-targeting. And this is something that many privacy advocacy groups were trying to push. no tracking, no micro-targeting, everything will be solved. But you also have an economic issue. If you ban all of a sudden the possibility to micro-target ads, what is the economic impact on the economy? And here what we wanted to see, what would be the impact on small and medium-sized businesses, because they are supposed to be the most vulnerable and the ones that could benefit the most from micro-targeting, because if you look at economics literature, micro-targeting is in certain communities, it's seen very positive because it enables at a lower price companies that can do things in a more ethical or more environmental better way to be able to reach customers they could not otherwise. So for this, we deployed a similar methodology as before, where we're asking the donations of data from users about the ads that they were seeing. And we collected a bunch of ads, we extracted their advertisers, and then we proposed these methods to link an advertiser on Facebook with a LinkedIn profile. This is like a matching method where you try to look at information that they put in both platforms and match them together. And from LinkedIn, we were able to extract the size of the company, because there you can see how many employers they have. So we were able to see what is the size of the advertisers that we collected in our data set. And here we can say the size of the business, and here you can say the fraction. So what we saw is that in our data set, 70% of the advertisers were indeed small and medium-sized businesses. So we can verify what companies have been saying for quite a while, is that this is very useful for small and medium-sized businesses. So it would impact them quite directly. Now the next question was, but are they using micro-targeting? Because this is the goal of the regulation, is to forbid to ban micro-targeting. And here I just wanted to make this very fine distinction between two things. So we have this, like, traditionally what is known advertiser-driven micro-targeting. So what is happening is that the platform is grouping users in certain categories. These are users interested in sports, these are interested in music, and these are interested in science. And then you have an advertiser that is specifying, oh, I want to reach users interested in science. This is advertiser-driven. Yeah, the platform is making available some characteristics and the advertiser is choosing. Now, what is happening, and something that people have not realized fully, is that you have this new form of algorithmic-driven micro-targeting, which is the advertisers are not specifying anything, but is the platform that is figuring out, based on the content of the ad, the website, and the users, to whom to send the ad. So it's a form of outsourcing the micro-targeting capabilities. So this is, again, like an explicit user profiling, and this is a sort of implicit user profiling that is happening. So then when we looked at whether small and medium-sized businesses and big enterprises are using advertiser-driven micro-targeting versus algorithmic-driven micro-targeting, we saw that the majority were not using the traditional, they were not using micro-targeting in the traditional sense. And this is the micro-targeting that the European Commission and Parliament wanted to ban, the ability to select groups of people. They were not discussing at all about this algorithmic-driven micro-targeting. And for us, it was quite a surprise, because in another study that we did a few years back, we saw that this advertiser-driven micro-targeting was close to 80%. Now the populations are not the same, but what we believe that it's happening is that the algorithms have become more and more powerful at choosing the right people to see an ad. So advertiser naturally they tested and they saw that, oh, there is no need for us to do all this research and understanding who are the customers. We are just letting the algorithms, the ad delivery algorithms do their own thing. This is good, but now why is this important to realize is that legislators were focusing on advertiser-driven targeting. And we could have been in a position where we ban something that it's no longer used because the technology moved away to other ways of doing things. So there is also this, kind of the problem when you want to have rules to make platforms safer is that they are constantly evolving, and then you need to have an eye on them to always understand what are the new risks that are appearing. Okay, so the final thing that we wanted to do in this related to political advertising is that we said, okay, we have these ad libraries, we have access to a lot of data. So what would be a way to analyze these huge amounts of data to understand something about what is happening during an election? And here we took inspiration from two political science projects, the comparative agenda project and the comparative manifesto project that were trying to understand public policy attention in manifestos, which are the political, whenever a political party is saying what we are planning to do, it's called a manifesto. So dans la programme d'un parti. So they were trying to have this taxonomy to understand what different parties and politicians are saying about, and they were also trying to understand discussions in the Congress to see how much time politicians have spent on particular policy during their public open sessions. So what we did is that we just we took this taxonomy and then we tried to apply it to the political ads and see whether we can have an automated way. So they were mostly doing this manually, but we try to see whether we can have some AI algorithms that are able to detect this. These were some of the examples of the public policies that they were that we tried to detect. And we analyzed the elections in France in 2022. We took all the ads that were here and to see what they were the ads were talking about. And what we saw is that the women were overexposed to ads about immigration, social policy, and health, and men were overexposed to ads about energy and economy. Now these things is different. There is a bias. We don't know whether the bias is coming from the advertisers themselves or from the platforms that are somehow inferring something about the ad preferences of different population, but it's certainly something that I would like to know when being exposed to ads, or I would like to have more transparency in this area. Good. So this was the part about political ads. I can stop here and then we have questions. Then we do have some works on exposure to information that I could go on. So depends on the audience where you want to go.
Good to have that, and we have questions.
Okay, so we.
If you have time, better.
No, my slides are never ending, but I put them in priority. So I will take, let's say, 5 to 10 more minutes, and then we can have questions. Okay, so yes, so this kind of ended the political ad sort of line of research, and this is a line of research about information exposure on social media. So this was an area mostly tackled by political scientists and social scientists. And the big worry there was that before, the way that people were accessing information was through a selective manner. They were going and they were buying the newspaper. Or when internet came, they were going to Le Monde, Le Figaro, Le Point, and they were consuming content. And this was one way of, this was an intentional way of consuming content. But with the internet and social media, you had this, what they call incidental exposure to misinformation, where you just go, you want to relax, and you just get hit by information that you actually don't control, that arrives, it arrives on your screen. And this is problematic because users don't have control and we don't understand what information appears there. And it's also problematic because many people in the US, according to surveys, are consuming news from social media. So we really want to understand what is the quality of this news. So again, the risks with incidental news exposure, this is the term that it's used in the literature, is the dissemination of misinformation. Users are more likely to receive misinformation because they incidentally receive posts from and recommender system are recommending them. Second thing is this huge issue of filter bubbles, meaning that users are more likely to only receive information that is congruent with what they believe in a country, and less likely to see the other people's point of view. So because of this filter bubble, you see more and more segregation in countries because everyone sees a different news part of the news ecosystem. And third is coordinated influence campaign. So what is happening, as in the case of the foreign interference in the US election, you have, and maybe you heard about Romania recently. So you have actors that can be foreign or not, that are trying to influence voters to vote for a particular candidate or not, and they are using this, not advertising in this case, but they are using the news ecosystem in order to promote their ideas. So you can, yes, there is the worry that it's easier to mount a coordinated influence campaign in an incidental news ecosystem than in a selective news ecosystem where you have a few editors that are very careful what to put in there. And about the Romanian election, for the ones that haven't heard, there was this influence campaign during the election period on TikTok that was detected, and the elections were canceled. Because the first candidate was 1 month before the elections, he was scoring close to 1%. And then in 1 month, he grew from 1% to 22%, which was the highest in the first round of election. And they find, the Secret Service find evidence of a coordinated effort to promote this candidate. So they canceled the election. And they forbid this candidate from applying to the next election. So it was, from what I know, it was the first time that something led to canceling an election. Something that happened online led to canceling of an election. And of course, there are all this question about, okay, so how much evidence we need on social media in order to claim that we need to cancel an election. And this is an area that we are currently working on. Anyway, again, if you want to measure the news ecosystem, you can have these two vantage points. One is the producer side. You look at who is producing information. And here you want to detect what are the sources of misinformation that are out there, or detect this coordination amongst, detect this coordinated influence campaign. And then you have the news consumer side, where we actually really want to understand to how much misinformation users are exposed to. So in the space, we always talk because Twitter for so many years was very open with their API, and researchers were able to easily collect data. There was a lot of work in saying, oh, there are all these sources of all these people that are trying to spread misinformation. And we always analyze them, the sources, the sources, the sources. But in the end, we don't have a view on the consumer side. Meaning, if you take a random person on the street, how often does this random person on the street see misinformation in their daily lives? And this is something that we wanted to go for in this study. So same methodology as before. We collected, instead of just focusing on the ads, we collected everything that was related to news that people were seeing on their timeline. And this deployment was done in the US. And what we observe in our data set is that 63% of the content that was related to news was coming from factual sources of information. And 5% of the content people were seeing on their Facebook timelines was coming from sources that are known for repeatedly spreading misinformation. Okay, so this was US. It was 1,000 people. It was a biased set of users, but it was one of the only studies at that time that was able to quantify how much information, factual versus unfactual information, users are seeing. Now, whether this is good or this is not good, I don't know. I think it's more interesting to see what is the evolution, whether misinformation it's rising or going down. Only one point. It's only one point. Now, as computer scientists, we want to understand what is the role of the algorithm, right? In all of this. Is the fault of the algorithms, or there is something else? So what you need to realize is that there are different underlying exposure mechanisms that make you see a particular post. First is selective exposure, meaning that I'm going to follow this news media and I'm going to receive the post. This is not the algorithm per se, it's my willingness to follow it. Then you have the network. You have the friends that are posting information about stuff. Again, this is not necessarily, it's the network that I have, not necessarily the algorithm. Then you have the recommendations that are directly coming, that are more preeminent in platforms like TikTok, less in platforms like Meta, like Facebook. And then you have targeted. And here what I'm saying is I'm referring back to the political ads. So you have 4 distinct mechanisms, underlying mechanisms that are responsible for you to see a particular content. So it's not good to merge everything together, because if you observe that it's because of you see more misinformation because of the algorithms, you know that you need to act there. But if you see more misinformation because users are choosing to follow sources of misinformation, this means that you need to do more media literacy, and it's not necessarily the algorithm. So understanding what you can do to improve things, it needs to understand. We need to understand first what is the underlying mechanism for this. And here, what in our data we saw is that users were more likely to see fake news because they subscribe to the sources rather than the algorithms. You still have algorithms as well, but it just was for us interesting to know that users are yes, it comes from users wanted to follow very weird sources of information. And that's, yeah, that's it. The second thing we wanted to understand is whether the filter bubbles exist. There are a lot of studies, one that they are saying that they exist, some others say they don't exist. All the measurement studies are flooded. Maybe all of them are right, maybe all of them are wrong, but we wanted to also use our data set to see what we see here. So what we saw is that we have there are these metrics that have been defined in the literature or of what it means to have a filter bubble. And one of these metrics, it's called balance. And the definition is that each side of the political spectrum represents 1/3 of the news diet. So if we look at all the news that one users received, and we know whether it comes from a right-leaning source or left-leaning source. So again, we did this in the US, and there the things are more easy because you have this bipartisan sort of country. And what we saw is that if you look at all the news that they receive, 35% have a balanced. They receive content from both parties. But if you only look at the selective news, there are only 13. So it does seem to show that users subscribe to sources of the same political leaning as them, but because of the other algorithmic network targeted area, they seem to be more exposed to other sources from the other side of the political leaning. Now, overall, what our results are saying is that, so here was 1/3, which is quite a lot, this balance definition. But all of the users were exposed to both political leanings in different measures. So this is kind of an argument saying that, oh, we don't have filter bubbles because users do get exposed to sources from both sides. But I think this was a bad way of looking at the problem. I don't think it's so simple to just say left and right. I think it's about more exposure to particular issues. So this is something that we would like to do in the next step, instead of just looking at right and left, see whether some users, let's say Republicans, what are the issues to which they are exposed through news, and Democrats, what are the particular issues. I think this is too coarse-grained to have a real meaning and impact, and we need to study filter bubbles at a finer granularity. But this is work to be done. Yes, so we also, when we did this measurement collection, we also collected behavior, meaning how users interact with the content they are seeing. And first thing that I was curious about was whether users check the information because they share it before they share it. And sadly, only 14% of the users click on the article before they share it. So this means that the majority of the users, at least in our data set, were taking the decision of sharing a content just based on the title and the very small summary of what they are reading there. And I think this is, we haven't worked on this, but I think it would be interesting to understand what knowledge does this create, because this seems to wake the way users are behaving, and they seem the majority of people are only reading this and then that's it. They don't need to read the rest of the article. And yes, this is work to be investigated in the future. So now the last piece of this work is that we wanted to see whether users behave differently with content from their side of political spectrum versus the other side of the political spectrum. And here we distinguished between two sorts of interaction. One is visible interaction, meaning that is this user clicking, liking, sharing this something, which it's called visible because it will be visible to its network. And here, like other works have been shown, is that you have Democrats are more likely to like, share Democrat-leaning sources, and Republicans are more likely to share and like Republican-leaning sources. But we also looked at hidden interaction, and hidden interaction is just the fact of clicking and reading the article. So a user goes and investigates, but is not further sharing this article on social media. And here what we found is that users seem to investigate the other source. So we kind of have this evidence of behavior that users are curious about the other side, but they don't want to make it public, but there is this curiosity of checking the Republican news sources. Now, this is the first study that is showing this. It would be nice to have it reproduced on more larger data sets and more complete data sets to actually gain again trust in humanity, but it was at least one good positive result in this study. And I'm going to stop here.
Thank you.
If there are no questions, I have a comment. Oana?
Yeah, I'm sorry you are here. Your image is
Okay.
here. I know that it's weird that I'm looking on the other side.
Okay. Now, what I wanted to say that, and I say it very seriously, that I am convinced for many years already that the issues that you are describing are the most important risk for humanity. I don't think I'm exaggerating with that. I think it's even worse than the climate change, what's going on. And because it's making our societies much more violent. And what I wanted to know is that if you are planning to try to find correlations between this phenomena that you have just described and the increasing of the violence in our societies, or other type of derivatives of the fact that we have this phenomena going on.
Daniel, this is a very interesting question. I don't know how we are going to be able to make the correlation. I mean, it's one thing to observe this online, but we only have, at least with our tools, we only have access to one social media. We don't have access to the complete picture of everything that people are seeing. So what I tried until now in this year, because I work with the European Commission on other pieces of law, is to ask for platforms to be required to provide data to researchers to study these systemic risks. And this delegated act was voted last, I think 2 months ago. So now researchers that are studying systemic risks, they can ask for data from from all the VLOPs in order to assess the risks. And there is a procedure. I think the first application will be due in 1 month, so we will see to which extent this is easy to get the data. But my work until now was to try to get access to the data, because the whole research community, the biggest problem since at the beginning was access to data. And we managed to do all these studies. Sometimes we were the first studying a particular risk, and it's because we were very tech savvy and we were able to exploit HTMLs and all sorts of things. But it was not possible for the majority of researchers to do that. Only a few computer scientists. And I think now, because this is now a law that gives access to researchers to public and private data from companies. Of course, there is a procedure, there is an acceptance and all sorts of complication, but yes, I'm talking about the first step. Now, the second step is how you correlate this data with violence in a particular country. And I think what we wanted to do a bit in this direction is to see, we wanted to see whether we can encourage people to go out and vote. And we did these ad campaigns, and we did these randomized clustered experiments where we put 3 cities that are very close in size, and they voted the same at the first round of the European election. And we tried to target one of the cities that was controlled, was targeted with Olympics game ads. Another treatment was targeted with go and vote, allez-y voter. And the third one was sort of more personalized based on the demographic of users, just saying, do you care about women's rights, go and vote? It was a bit more personal. And we wanted to see whether there is a difference between the treatment and the control in go out and vote in actual voting, because we have voting at circumscription level, so you can actually see a correlation. We did see, but the statistical significance it's there, but it was a small scale. But we are trying to see ways in which we can, there is an active way of measuring violence or influence, which is what we try to do with these randomized clustered experiments or randomized control trials. And then I think this is easier to do, but I'm not sure the ethical approval you will get for instigating violence. So you need to circumvent and do something that it's more pacifist. And then for passively referring this, I think with the right data, with some causal models, it might be possible in the future, but I'm not an expert in causal inference. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Oana, are you familiar with Claire Levallois? You know her?
Yes.
Okay, because we just launched just a year ago a new research center at Institut Min Telecom, and there are several axes there. One that is led by her about the regulation and all the type of things you are talking about, and I think it will be very, very interesting if we discuss together about the collaboration that could be established, because it's more than relevant. I mean, and as I said before, I really believe that this is a critical issue we have to tackle. In particular, she's member of this committee, the National Committee of Digital Ethics, and um, and they just launched together with Yvon Messeguet, they launched a new project together with the Ministry of Interior, le Ministère de l'Intérieur, regarding these issues. So I think that a very nice collaboration could be established. If you are open to that, I will make the contacts.
Yeah, of course.
Great. Thank you very, very much.
I had a short question also for what you call the information bubble.
The what?
The bubble.
The bubble.
Right. So is there a way to look at the influence of the algorithm used by browsers just from external measurements? I mean, we know that initially Google was using PageRank, which is very neutral, and clearly there is because it also contributes beyond the way people interact through social media. I mean, that the browser sends you the information you which fits best your initial viewpoint is a source of self-referential mechanism. So is there a way to infer algorithms from external observations of how browsers behave?
So I could imagine that you collect data on specific there are two things that you can do. You either monitor, you can monitor browsers. We focused on social media, but whatever a browser is seeing, it can be collected. And you can of course collect Google search and just see what the user is searching, and then you can collect what were the results of what he's searching, and so somehow try to see. There is a recent paper in Nature, or no, I think it's in Science, that was investigating biases in Google search. So they are, and it's based on the same principle of looking at browsers, the data from browsers. The other thing is that you are instrumenting browsers. You don't need users, but you are creating different profiles and you are searching for different things. This is about I was saying about the auditing studies. You try to ping with the right queries and see whether there is what is the difference between the results given to profiles that have a particular profile versus results provided to other profiles of users. These are the two ways of investigating biases.
And are there any wishes of the European Commission to also, try to control that, or to, because that's a very clear way how you can control the mind of people, right? You
So
just send
the
them.
European Commission, they want transparency. They want to understand what are the risks, and they want to let researchers study the risks they think that they are most important. They don't want to, they have their own research labs, but I think they are very operational in what they are doing. But they are very curious about knowing whether Google has a bias or not, of course.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I have a few questions. So the first one relates to the AI detection mechanism to identify political ads that you have presented. So in many other contexts, it is quite easy to use also AI so that the ad is not detected as political. Like with GAN, for example, you could generate ads that will go below the radar and still point to the same target.
Yeah, we can do that.
So that is one potential issue with AI classification in about every domain.
I think that the difficulty here is that you don't have access to the algorithm that Facebook has. So you need to probe Facebook, and your ads might get banned, and then it creates, maybe your account will get banned. So there is this technical difficulty in probing for answers from Facebook's algorithm or Google's algorithm to detect. But you can try to do it, but it's not so easy in practice. But this is what I want to say.
And maybe related to the question of François, we have seen that with Twitter. Okay. Now the algorithm is explicitly modified with political bias, and it has been announced on many instances because since Elon Musk took it and engaged in politics, many parts of the algorithms reject explicitly some content or will not display it. And I'm not even sure that it's possible to buy ads for issues that are strongly sensitive and opposite to the views of the owner of the platform. So there is a concern that even the core of the algorithm of social networks is bound to the policy of the country they are operating with.
Yes, this is a very good point, and this is something that we would like. We are thinking about what we could do, because before what we were considered that online platforms they have biases, but they are not malicious themselves. They are trying to be kind of neutral, and they are guided by economic gain, but they are not intentionally trying to bias the algorithm, which now it's a concern that many researchers are having, especially on Twitter. And there is this case against Twitter for
Yeah, and also recently the fact that TikTok went to an agreement with the American government to have a special TikTok for the US managed by Americans is quite revealing about the awareness of the influence and the kind of regulation they want to put into.
I mean, they always had influence on the regulation, but what we assume is that they want regulation to make more money, but we haven't assumed that they want to have regulations that are giving more power to certain people, which is it's a very big concern. So the question is, how to best audit from the outside the algorithms to see whether there is any new bias that is introduced.
And my last comment, maybe, so you have not presented it, maybe you are also studying it, but the users are a bit left out of the question, and in particular, the education and the awareness of users about social network bias. Because, okay, publishing research paper, it's fine, but the audience is maybe a few thousand people, while there are billions of users of social networks that are unaware. And what you said with the Romanian election is very true, but if people are not aware that they are being manipulated, the manipulation will continue.
So yes, it's definitely problematic, but I do see more and more initiatives, especially from the OECD countries, for media literacy. They are putting quite a bit of money into funding NGOs that are going in high schools. They are going in different places to teach. They are calling media literacy. I do think that we also need to have algorithmic literacy. So in media literacy, saying, oh, this is an opinion, this is a factual article, because apparently most teenagers and even adults don't know the distinction between a factual article and an opinion article. So this is, they start with the basic. And of course, there is this algorithmic part that it would be good to be included. I know that in France as well, the ministre d'enseignement dans les écoles, they are trying to introduce these classes about media literacy. Yes, so there is from the people that I had contact with, there is a lot of initiative in this direction. Now, there was one idea to work with OECD. When I visited there, we were thinking, how can we measure the impact of such measures? And we were discussing at some point last year to use the tool that we created, and then we have countries that are deploying these sorts of initiatives for media literacy and see whether there is anything in the behavior of the users that is changing or the exposure of the users that is changing. So they are both interested. I mean, the OECD is pushing quite hard about countries to put more effort in media literacy, but they would like to also measure the impact. And countries as well, they would like to see the return on investing. And on the measurement part, we can be more useful, because on the media literacy part, I think there are other people that are more useful than us, but technical people are more useful in measuring the impact that it could have. And I think they are launching this global challenge on AI transparency. I forgot the full name, the OECD, where they are trying to pair up governments and researchers in studying some of these projects. I think there will be a kickoff soon. I can send you maybe the information.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for the talk. I had just a question, because I think it was during the part about the filter bubble, you mentioned that possible issues with the methods was that the fact that it was based on volunteering was in and of itself kind of a first filter and could introduce bias in the behavior of the people. And is there any bias that you could see in the data you collected from the people because from the people that volunteered, was there any bias that you could detect in the data you collected?
The biases are there. The short answer is that. Then we had a bunch of ways to try to reduce the bias.
Okay.
We tried to get different. They were not volunteers. We paid people in the US to install the browser. So this is another bias. But at least we try to pay people from different ethnic backgrounds, different genders, different regions, meaning. Is this a swing state? This is a red state. This is a blue state. We also try urban areas versus rural areas. And we try to do this this stratified sampling to mimic a random sample, but we didn't manage in I don't know, in Asians that are Republicans, we couldn't get many. They are liberals, but we couldn't get the Republican Asians. So we try to reduce it, but it's still yeah, representative sample. That's why I was saying having a representative sample, larger representative sample would give more weight to these sorts of studies. But at least if there is a first evidence, there is more likely for others to work on it and get more access, maybe hopefully through the delegated act of the Digital Services Act.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for having me.